Okay, so my presentation's a little less formal. It's a little more helpful rules and that kind of stuff. It's concentrating mostly around PowerPoint presentations as opposed to any type of presentation, because pretty much everything people are doing nowadays is PowerPoint presentations. So, some rules. First one thing you decide before you start doing any presentations is when questions should be asked. There's two times. You can say, ask me a question anytime you want, or ask me questions at the end. And by making that very clear at the start, you don't have problems with people continuing waving their hands or putting up their hands saying, oh, I need now. They know if they can ask questions, they know that if you're paying attention, and they can get it. So for my presentation, I don't mind, so feel free to ask the crowd. Yep.
So are you doing a presentation on presentations where you establish the rules while you're doing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
See, I should have done this beforehand, but I didn't.
This is a presentation before.
Well, it would have worse if I made a rule of 10, because then I would have had problems with questions. Okay. Talk. So, when people get nervous and they stand up in front of people, they often start talking more quickly and they don't know what to do, and then they're just going on and on and on and on and on, and people can't hear you, they can't understand you. Talk calmly. You've done your presentation, you know it, you know how long it's going to take, so don't worry about it. Just talk calmly, smoothly, and people will be happy with it. It also helps prevent the 2A, the rule. If you're talking quickly, you have a hard time keeping up in your own mind with what you're going to say next. You don't exactly know. You know your material, you know what you're going to say, so when you're talking calmly, you have time to prepare your next sentence, you're going to be ready, and you don't end up with all this ums and ers and that kind of stuff. And it sounds much more professional with what you're going to say. Next one, the power stance. Yes, I get the right. And I did. So, there's different ways people can stand. You can talk waving your hands, you can walk back and forth in front of the class, you can do all kinds of different ways. Walking, well, you have a limited thing. You have your presentation here. Do you want to walk in front of it? Probably not, because you're going to get blinded. So you're going to walk off to the side, or you're going to be hiding in a corner. So pacing is usually not a good idea. The same thing, a lot of people, hands in the pockets. That's fine. You don't have to walk in your hands, which does help express things, but the problem is, once you put your hands in pockets, people often start swaying. It's a nervous thing with humans, but start swaying back and forth. A lot of people get seasick, and if people in your presentation are vomiting, it's probably not going to go your way. So, next one, selection. People love to put up exactly what they're going to say on their presentation on the slide. They're putting an entire thing, and then I can read it off there. The problem is, I know and I can see all your faces. The second I put this up here, every one of you started looking up here and started reading. What's up there is gibberish. Don't bother with it. It's just to prove my point. By putting up lots of words up there, you're taking away people's attention. They can either listen to you or they can read. Multitasking is a very hard ability, and putting those two together is difficult. By putting up very point-form notes, people can get the idea of what you're saying, they can understand what you're going to be talking about, but at the same time, they're listening to you and listening to your important information, and they're not trying to just read what you're going to say. Same thing, if you have point cards and that kind of stuff. Put very small notes in there, because what you don't want to be doing is looking down and reading off here. You want to be meeting it. You want to be looking at the people, and if they don't understand, you can often see people not understanding or not agreeing, and you can make your point more thoroughly, or if they're understanding and just want you to get on with it, you can get on with it. Next one, timing. When you bring up a slide, everybody, as I said before, is immediately going to look up there and try and read your slide. So give them a second or two when you bring up your new slide so they can read it and they can get the focus back to you. It also gives you a little breather between your sentences so that you're ready to get on with things. You can get your thoughts clear and everything just flows better. Text size. Well, some is too large, some is too small. As before I said, point form notes. With that, you're not going to have problems with text size. A lot of people, I need to fit this much text, and they just kept making it smaller and smaller and smaller so they can fit. So not only can people not read through their own text because it's so massive, but they can't read it because it's too small. The same thing, making text too large, all it's going to do is dominate your screen and not give a good visual representation of order. As you can see, the title in this one is smaller than the next text, which doesn't give the sense of a title. Jargon versus acronyms. So, when you're doing a presentation, you should assume, depending on who you're talking to, that they have a certain idea of what you're talking about and understand it. Jargon is fine. If I'm doing a presentation to computer science students, I can probably assume they know a binary search, or if I don't, I can explain it briefly and they will understand it. On the other hand, acronyms are everywhere, and the problem is, unless you're doing a very scientific one where the acronyms are short forms for this jargon, people probably won't necessarily remember or know what the acronyms are. Spread it out, you have plenty of space in your presentation, and don't necessarily say them. Or if you really feel the need to use an acronym because it's used everywhere, the first time make sure that you expand it out so people can see what the acronym is and they'll know. Spelling. I'm horrible at this. I'll say it right now. I'm bad at spelling, and there's two things that people do in presentations that often frustrate the crowd. The first one is not spell checking. It's hit F7. Just please, before you do a presentation, hit F7, go through it. It's not that difficult, and misspelled words just have this irritation to people that make them not really concentrate on you. It's like, this person didn't take the presentation professionally. They're not spending that extra few seconds it takes to make sure it's spelled correctly. On the other hand, if you're using spell check, make sure it gets the right words. Just because it says this is the word, don't assume it is. Spell check is great.